The good times just keep rolling for the Kraken at home. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Kraken win their fourth straight, starting out this homestand 4-0 as they defeat the New York Islanders 3-2 in regulation with another third period comeback. It also improves the Kraken record to 9-8-1, so they're now back over NHL 500 even after how poorly things went on that road trip. And we got to welcome back an old face into the lineup with Daniel Sprong joining the team, taking, well, not Eberle's spot specifically, as Eberle is going to miss both parts of this back-to-back on the weekend. He missed today's game, he'll miss the one against the Rangers, and then they get a couple days off before Wednesday. Let's just say I'm not convinced that he's going to be ready for the game on Wednesday against the Predators to end the homestand, but at least for now, all they've confirmed is that he will not play either one of these two games against the New York teams. But fortunately, at least for this first game of the back-to-back, it didn't end up mattering, or at least the Kraken were able to win without him, as Burakovsky jumps up to the first line to take his spot along with Beniers and McCann, and then Sprong joins right on that third line. Who really knows, especially with the fourth line playing as well as it has been here over these last 4 games for the Kraken. And you know what, with that, since again this is the first half of a back-to-back with another game for the Kraken coming tomorrow, or more likely later today by the time you're watching this video, let's just get right into the game, where once again the emphasis for the Kraken coming into this game was to get off to a good start and start a game on time, which even in the first 2 games of this homestand, the first 2 games of this win streak, had not necessarily been something the Kraken were doing. They did fall down 2-0 in each of the first periods of this homestand, coming off of a road trip where, well, outside of the Montreal game towards the beginning of it, the first period was one of the periods that they, well, let's just say it seemed like it was optional whether they even played it at all. Now, thankfully, they did start to get that turned around against Chicago, but again, it is Chicago, and while they are a better team, it seems like, so far this season than they were last year, it's still a team you should be able to handle and not struggle against in the first period. Of course, you could say the same about Columbus, and they still managed to struggle in the first period of that game. Either way, the Islanders, you would think, would pose a little bit more of a challenge for the Kraken if they are going to start on time. And, well, I mean, it was a bit back and forth early on. There were shot attempts at both ends of the ice. Decord did have to make one pretty decent save early in the game, but it is still the Kraken that break the ice and get on the board first. And of course, guess who? It's the fourth line that's out there doing it once again for the Kraken, getting them into the offensive end. It's Brandon Tanev with the puck behind the net. He curls around to the far side and then whips around 180, fires it off at the net, and it somehow plops into the white paint behind the goal line to get the Kraken on the board. It's 1-0, and as it turns out, it goes off the neck of Yanni Gourde into the net, so Gourde picks up his first of the season, and I guess that net guard that he's had on ever since the unfortunate passing of a player a couple years ago, not in the NHL, but an ex-NHL player that passed away from a neck injury that started getting some players wearing those neck guards. Well, it's not necessarily why it's there, but it protects them a little bit more and goes off of that into the net to give the Kraken the 1-0 lead. Gourde can't help but just smile and laugh to himself that of all the things he's tried to do, all the great forechecking and scoring that his line has started to get, this is how he's going to get his first goal of the season. In the end, it doesn't really matter how it happens, it just matters that it does. Finally gets him on the score sheet for the first time this season as the goal scorer, and it gets the Kraken on the board first. Although even with that Gourde goal and the Kraken taking the early lead, it didn't really end up changing the pace or flow of the period very much, as it continues to be a pretty back and forth period between the two teams, each getting their chances, and as the game would play out, some of the better chances in this game coming in the third, at least certainly the better chances of the first 2 periods of the game. We'll get to that, but the Kraken get a power play after Gourde scoring. They get a good chance early on in it, but it is still killed off by the Islanders, who immediately after going back to 5-on-5, get a couple of chances back the other way, and it is the second of those chances that finds the back of the Kraken net, as a wide open shot from the slot is saved by Decord, but with it being a hard shot from in tight, there isn't a lot Decord can do to try to control the rebound, or at least not as much as he would like to be able to, so the rebound goes out to the far side, where there is both a Kraken and Islander player kind of jockeying for position, but it is Cizikas who's able to get the position on, I want to say it was Bjorkstrand, but whoever the Kraken player is there, Cizikas gets in front of him, gets to the rebound first, and is able to slap it into what's basically an empty net behind Decord, who's at the top of the crease, without really much of anything Joey can do about it. which ties the game at 1. Of course, then, as you would expect, based on how this first period is gone, the Kraken almost immediately respond with a good chance of their own. That is saved, and we continue to go back and forth through the last couple minutes of the first to get to the end of the first, still tied at 1. And then the second period is, well, we don't have to spend too much time on it. It's, in a lot of ways, just New York Islander hockey. They very much are a team that, for a while now, has lived and died by trying their best to play low-event hockey and then take advantage of opposing mistakes to get a couple goals and win games by relatively low scores with good goaltending and good defense the other way, not to mention trying to lock the blue line down, so even if a team can get through their rather tightly played neutral zone, they're not going to get much as far as good chances in the offensive end without having to get through some hard checking from the Islanders on the back check. That is very much how the Islanders play this period, at least on the defensive end. Fortunately, the Kraken don't really make any huge mistakes that allow the Islanders to try to take advantage of them. I mean, I guess Decor did have to make one or maybe two pretty good saves, maybe not A+ level saves or like highlight reel saves or anything like that, but a couple decent saves that Decor does make in the second to keep things tied. The Kraken got one, maybe two chances the other way. In general, though, just not much to say about the second period. Both teams get power plays, both teams get chances on those power plays, and neither one really ends up going anywhere. And so eventually, after 20 more minutes of hockey, still nothing more has been decided, and we go to the second intermission and third period with the score still tied at 1 in a game that is really starting to feel like the third goal could be the deciding one. Thankfully for the Kraken, though, that would not end up being the case, as the next goal and the first one of the third period would not go in their favor, which isn't necessarily what you would have seen coming, as the third period actually gets off to a decent start for the Kraken. They get some pressure, they get a couple shots. Beniers ends up drawing a call as he splits a couple of defenders getting into the Islanders' end, but then can't quite get the shot off one-on-one with Sorokin, since one of those two guys that he got between hooks his hands with the stick, so he's to the box. The Kraken get to the power play, but on that power play, they allow their first shorthanded goal of the season as a puck gets past Riker Evans, and then I don't know if he was at the end of a long shift. It didn't really seem like it. The second unit had only been out there for 30 seconds. So I'm not exactly sure what happens here, but Evans gets out hustled to a loose puck by Nelson, so he's able to get to it first and skate in on a breakaway one-on-one with Decord. And although Riker does get back to at least challenge him right at the end of it as he makes a nice move, outweighting Decord and then just taking it to the far side, Evans at least makes it a little bit harder for him to just kind of gently shove it into the empty half of the net, but not enough. He still is able to eventually, after a couple attempts, get his stick back on the puck and shove it into the empty half of the net. Nothing Decord can really do about it. He'd already sprawled out to try and take as much of the net away as he could, and he in the end just kind of has to sit there and watch the puck go past his outstretched toe into the net to give the Islanders the shorthanded goal and 2-1 lead. And at the time, especially with how this goal is scored for the Islanders, with it being one where Nelson out hustles a Kraken defender to get to the puck, gets one-on-one and then outweights Decord, and then even though there is a last second challenge to him being able to actually get the shot on the goal, I don't mean like coach's challenge like Riker Evans getting back there, he still is able to slowly just slide the puck into the net, and Decord just kind of has to watch it go past his toe. I have to admit that maybe this is thoughts of how last season would go when the Kraken would give up these third period goals after playing generally a good game, or maybe the road trip. I don't know what it was. This felt like it was going to be the last goal of the game. It felt like the backbreaker. And to be clear, it's not that I didn't think the Kraken were going to be able to create some more good chances, or at least find ways to get good chances with still the vast majority of the third period remaining. So it's not like this is coming with just a couple minutes left in the game, and that's why you're feeling like this one is the decider. It's just with it being the Islanders and how the game had gone along, even if the Kraken did get some more good chances, got another power play, or even with the extra man on the ice with the empty net towards the end of the game, Sorokin would be able to make up the difference, and this game would probably just end in a very, well, let's just say a typical Islanders 2-1 win, where they did eventually get the one big mistake. Unfortunately, it was on a Kraken power play, but they got that big mistake. They got the game-deciding goal, and now they can lock it down. And to be clear, when I say the Islanders like this low event, take advantage of mistakes type of game and like winning by low scores, well, it's definitely not necessarily, at the very least, a bad way to play, since after all, it's the same style of play that they used to get to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals just a few years ago. It might not always be the most exciting to watch unless you're an Islanders fan and you like winning, which they did a lot in those couple of seasons, and they still do a fair amount now. But yeah, when you're a team that's needing to come back against them in the third period, it definitely doesn't strike you with a ton of confidence that that's going to happen. With all that having been said, though, what I forgot to take into account was quite literally what I spent most of two R&Rs ago talking about: the resilience of this year's Kraken team, at least when they're playing at their best or not their worst. As less time than it's been since I talked about the Islanders taking the lead in this video, the Kraken are able to respond right back as the power play comes to an end in the final 30 seconds of it, or 20 seconds of it. But just as the power play comes to an end, with the Kraken still having one more chance before the Islanders fully regroup with the fifth man out on the ice, it's Riker Evans with the puck in the Kraken end. He gets it quickly in transition, up off the boards, and still along the boards to Andrei Burakovsky, who right at center ice finds Jared McCann in stride crossing the blue line. He's in alone, one-on-one, and buries it from right between the face-off dots to give the Kraken right back a tie game. Either way, gets the Kraken right back the goal that they just gave up on their own power play, ties the game at 2. McCann salutes the crowd with a finger point as he goes along the boards, and the Kraken, just like that, erase all of those doubts and fears we had of a potential 2-1 loss, with the deciding goal being the shorthanded one. For McCann, it's his 9th of the season, team leading 9th of the season, as he continues to not only lead the team in goals, assists, and points, but continues to score points, whether they're goals or assists, at a rate that'll make him easily surpass the franchise record. He's currently 21 points with 9 goals and 12 assists through the first 18 games, so yeah, things going pretty well for McCann, as both Burakovsky, who hasn't been scoring as many goals, but this is his 8th assist and first one on the first game up there on that first line. And then, of course, Riker Evans also picking up his 8th with the pass down from the Kraken end that started the whole thing. From there, the rest of the third period goes back to, well, the reason that I was fearful that that shorthanded goal for the Islanders might be the game-deciding one, as it's pretty low event for most of the rest of the third period. The two teams trade chances towards the middle of the period. Cizikas gets one more rebound chance that gives him a good chance on Decord, all alone one-on-one in front of the net, but Decord comes up with a good save on that one. Then back the other way, Burakovsky gets a good chance for the Kraken, with that first line continuing to get pressure on the Islanders. We go back to not much of anything happening. In fact, as we get deeper into the third period, there's a couple of sequences where the Islanders just do anything they can to keep the puck pressed up against the boards in their defensive end. One of them, they kept it pressed against the boards for so long that the official just came over and blew it dead and did a face-off, and within 30 seconds, the puck's right back almost in the exact same spot, pressed against the boards with no sign of it coming loose. That time, eventually it did come loose, and we got to, well, actually playing hockey again. And then, finally, with just the last few minutes of the game left, last 3 or so minutes left, just as you're starting to think about whether or not it's going to be worth it to get up and try to use the bathroom or get something more to eat or drink before overtime starts, and maybe risk missing the first couple seconds of overtime, which, as we know, can definitely matter. It can decide the game. Well, it turns out the Kraken don't want you to have to think about that anymore, as it's, once again, that fourth line out there on the ice that get the Kraken back into the offensive end with at least one more chance to get a couple more shots off on net. And one of those shots comes from Jamie Alexiak way up at the blue line. He fires off the shot on net, and it ends up going off Brock Nelson right in front of Sorokin. Goes off his foot, past Sorokin just as he closes up to try to make sure the puck doesn't go through the 5-hole. It goes through him the other way off that deflection from Nelson. And although Tanev is right there and almost gets to it in time to push it into the net, it makes it into the net without him, so Tanev doesn't pick up his 5th goal in 4 games. But the Kraken do get the 3-2 lead off Alexiak. It would be challenged for goaltender interference, as there was a little bit of contact between Tanev and Sorokin a couple seconds before Alexiak shoots the puck. This time, even with how incredibly frustratingly often it seems like goaltender interference calls go against the Kraken, whether it's the Kraken challenging or the other team, and how incredibly inconsistent goaltender interference seems to get called from one game to the next, one night to the next. I have to say, after watching the replay, I couldn't really see any reason that they would overturn this one. Yeah, there is a little bit of contact between Tanev and Sorokin, but it's a couple of seconds before Alexiak even shoots the puck, much less the puck coming back into screen as you look down on it from the view right above the net. And even with that being said, the puck still ends up hitting Sorokin a little bit on its way into the net, so it really wasn't much of a surprise even with how frequently goaltender interference calls go against the Kraken, that this one is upheld. In the end, I think it was just kind of a desperation play by the Islanders. It is a lead-taking goal with just about 3 minutes left in the game, so you take your chance that the replay room and the officiating doesn't know what goaltender interference is any more than anybody else, and they overturn something that has no reason being goaltender interference. It wouldn't be the first time that it's happened, so you take that chance. I guess they just figured they had a better chance of winning a low percentage challenge than getting a game-tying goal at 6-on-5 and trying to get to overtime that way. Again, fortunately, the gamble doesn't pay off for the Islanders. The goal is upheld. The Kraken get the 3-2 lead, and with the challenge being unsuccessful, the Islanders take the penalty, so the Kraken go to a power play with 3 minutes and I think it was like 13-14 seconds left. So all the Kraken have to do is kill off 2 minutes of power play. They don't even really have to try to score all that much. In fact, it might be better if they just pass the puck around the offensive end or wherever, just keep possession of the puck for 2 minutes, and yeah, maybe the Islanders get a minute or so of a chance with the puck. I mean, if you hold on to it the whole time, then you can even kill off a good chunk of that minute plus it'll be left at the end of the power play. But maybe another reason the Islanders challenged this is they already got one shorthanded goal this game, so why not roll the dice that you might get a second? And wouldn't you know it, even with the Kraken playing a conservative power play with 2 defensemen, the puck still ends up taking a weird bounce over Evans. It's a pass from, I want to say Burakovsky passes it to Evans and just hits something on the ice, bounces over Evans' stick, and this time Evans is caught a bit flat-footed as he was getting ready to skate into the offensive end with the puck and either fire off a shot or pass it again. Instead, the puck goes the other way as Evans has to change his momentum to go after it. And although it is once again Brock Nelson that gets to it first, at least this time I wouldn't necessarily say that it was Nelson out hustling Evans to the puck. It just turns out that, well, Nelson is a forward, so he's a bit faster than Evans is. And on top of that, again, Evans had his momentum going away from the Kraken end of the ice, while Nelson had his momentum at least even, if not slightly leaning that way. So he has the break, he gets to the puck first. That means he has another breakaway shorthanded, and well, we've already seen this happen once this period, so everybody hold on to your butts. He skates in, fires off the shot, and Decord comes up with a clutch blocker save. The puck goes harmlessly into the corner. Evans is able to catch up to it on the forecheck, not allowing Nelson to get a second chance to go collect the puck and get a pass off to one of his teammates. The Kraken dodge a huge bullet there with Decord saving at least the game-tying goal, if not the whole game, with another Nelson breakaway on another Kraken power play. And from there, the Kraken are able to pretty much kill off the rest of the game. They do eventually go empty net. The Islanders eventually go empty net once the Kraken power play comes to an end. They get about a minute of empty net time. The Kraken almost hit the empty net. It's Yanni Gourde who gets a chance with the puck on his stick in, I think, just inside the blue line in the offensive end with nobody between him and the net, a wide open empty net with Sorokin on the bench. And Gourde puts it off the crossbar and out of play. He just looks to the sky in exasperation that even though he got that first goal of the season, finally gets the monkey off his back. Well, maybe it climbed right back on as he misses the empty net. It was also kind of entertaining that as Gourde kind of circles away from the net looking at the sky, McCann's just kind of standing there with his hand over his mouth trying not to laugh as Gourde kind of skates past him. So it would be kind of fun to know what McCann had to say to Gourde there. Obviously, at that point, there was only 8 seconds left in the game, so the face-off is going to come in New York's end of the ice, and yeah, it's not like you're not going to score from, I mean, a disaster would have to happen for the Islanders to be able to score from their end of the ice in 8 seconds, which they don't, and the Kraken win this one 3-2. So once again for the Kraken, they show some real resilience there in yet another third period with yet another third period comeback to end up winning this game after giving up their first shorthanded goal of the season to go down 2-1 against a team that doesn't always give up a lot of goals, especially when Sorokin is playing well and they're in their defensive structure as well as they were in this game. The Kraken still are able to not only score once to get a tie and force overtime, but twice to avoid overtime entirely and then lock things down pretty well themselves. And yeah, it's not a multi-goal comeback like they had in the first 2 games of this homestand and 3 times already this season, which they didn't do much at all. In fact, they didn't do it once last year, like I said in a couple of videos ago. But nonetheless, it's a resilience, especially in the third period, that we've seen from them. We saw it for the first time, I think, against Minnesota in the second game of the season, the first half of their first of so far 3 weekend back-to-backs. Now, hopefully, with this one going like that, but not going to overtime, the Kraken coming back from a deficit in the third period to win a game. Hopefully the second half of the back-to-back goes a little bit better than the second half of that back-to-back, with that being the 2-0 loss in Dallas. And I mean, of course, as we know, neither one of the second half of either of the back-to-backs the Kraken have had so far have gone particularly well. They lost 2-0 in Dallas, then 2-0 in Boston. So with a very good New York Rangers team coming in on the second half of a back-to-back on Sunday, fortunately for the Kraken this time, it's at home, so there's no travel between the two games. But also, for the first time, they're facing a team that isn't coming in on the second half of a back-to-back. It is a Rangers team that definitely has the ability to win games 2-0, but at least for now, we can just enjoy this fourth straight Kraken win, fourth straight win to start out this homestand, and the Kraken getting back on the plus side of 500. And just another very enjoyable Kraken game, a game that was entertaining to watch all the way along. Well, okay, maybe I shouldn't say the entire 60 minutes were the most entertaining hockey. That is kind of what the Islanders like to do. They'll slow down the game at points. We saw that through good chunks of the second period and definitely parts of the middle of the third. Either way, it turned out to be pretty exciting with the late comeback for the Kraken, and yeah, no complaints. And you know what, with that, and since again, this is the first half, so we'll have another video tomorrow, let's go ahead and get to the Kraken 3 stars and close this one out. As always, brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you do want to help decide the Kraken 3 stars, or even give input just in general on R&Rs or other videos to do, you can help support the channel a little bit more than you already are by watching to this point by going to the link down below and supporting over on Patreon as well. And the first star for me, I'll go with Yanni Gourde. He gets the first goal of his season, at least, and it's not like he hasn't been working hard enough to get these goals. He's, once again, as we've known Gourde to be throughout his the entire time the Kraken have been a franchise active in the NHL, he is very much one of those guys that goes to the net and creates chaos. He's done that all season long, and eventually it paid off for him here. Sure, it's not necessarily how you draw up your first goal of the season going off his neck, but he'll happily take it, and at the very least it wasn't the hardest shot that hit him in the neck or anything like that. He was able to enjoy himself right after the fact, so yeah, it was good to see him get that one. He probably wants the empty netter one back, and hopefully that doesn't start another streak of being snake bit. But for Gourde, a great game. Even outside of those two plays, that fourth line once again was creating chaos and really forcing the Islanders to play a little bit more in their end than maybe they would have liked to. Second star, I'm going to go with Jamie Alexiak, obviously another one of the goal scorers, so that certainly helps. But for Alexiak, even outside of the goal, honestly, even if he didn't score that goal, he maybe would have been more the third star rather than the second star. But I think I would have given Alexiak a star either way. He had a fantastic game. Defensively, he had a couple of plays that really made a difference for the Kraken. He did have another good chance in the third period with a 2-on-1, maybe even 3-on-1, you could argue, that the Kraken had after another play that he made at the other end of the ice, where Alexiak has the puck with McCann and I think Beniers on the other side. And while usually I'm all for the player with the puck on one of those odd man chances, just taking the shot and hoping for a rebound rather than trying to force a pass through and maybe not even getting a shot off at all. When McCann and Beniers are the two on the other side, I kind of would like to see Alexiak pass that, but you know what? It's hard to complain too much, especially considering that breakaway only really happens because Alexiak was able to, on a great back check, get back to break up what was almost a 4-on-1 for the Islanders. He just snuck up right behind the guy with the puck and plucked it off his stick, got it down to Tanev. Tanev got it back to him for that breakaway the other way. Yeah, just in general, a good game from Alexiak at both ends of the ice. And then my third star, I don't want to be too boring and go with McCann. Obviously, McCann is, what else do you want me to say about McCann? He would be maybe my choice for team MVP right now at this point in the season. The only other contenders I can even think of would be obviously Decord and then Brandon Montour, who was absolutely fantastic. I would think no doubt the MVP for the team through the first 10, maybe even 15 games of the season. And while he hasn't been bad by any stretch of the imagination for the last few games, he just hasn't been that game breaker, difference maker that he was at the start of the season, necessarily game in, game out through these last few. Regardless of all that, though, the third star, instead of McCann, I'm going to go once again with Brandon Tanev, who has been probably the first star so far of this homestand, I would have to say. He is now down to just 4 goals in the 4 games of the homestand rather than keeping up his goal per game streak that he'd been going on with the 2 goals in the first game of the homestand. Even with that, he still had a fantastic game. He has the primary assist on the neck goal from Gourde that got things going, and he Well, he actually did get a second assist on Alexiak's goal and very nearly got that goal as he just wasn't quite able to touch the puck before it goes into the net. But still a great game from Tanev. That fourth line, or whatever you want to call them, is driving things for this team. As always, though, I'd love to know what you think down in the comment section below. Who else you might pick for the 3 stars? A couple of other options I can think of. Burakovsky had a pretty good game up on that first line with Beniers and McCann. Obviously, McCann, another goal scorer. Riker Evans did have the one play. Could have gotten back a little bit faster on that shorthanded goal for the Islanders, but otherwise he had a pretty good game again. I don't know. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. Enjoy this 4th straight win, and hopefully the Kraken can make it 5 straight against their toughest opponent of this homestand in the Rangers coming in here Sunday night. Until then, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.